back, everybody. Here we are on a Friday night, getting started. Tonight we're going to be talking with Clif. Clif is on with us. We're the botnet technology. Now think of taking all of the different languages, all of the different communications going on in a real-time environment, such as like on a message board, for example. The communications back and forth, the interactions, the topics, taking all of that and analyzing it in such a way, in a concept that each and every one of us is psychic. And it comes out in certain ways, usually in our speech, the way we talk and what we talk about, in a sense. And you pile that together to get a forecast of the future, of what is going to happen. That's very, very foggy, but can still be discerned in such a way that it gives you clues to what may happen. Sounds like science fiction? No, it's not. And we'll tell you why. Clif, it's good to have you back on the program.
Thank you, sir. Nice being here.
Yeah, we're just talking here a little bit off air, and it's kind of hard to believe that the last time we talked was New Year's Eve, and look, the year's half gone already.
Yeah, it's just shocking.
It is. It really is. It really is. All right. I sat and explained a little bit about the botnet technology, probably not as well as I could have. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about it in case there's anyone out there that's just learning about it?
Actually, you've got the gist of it, basically. We're all psychic, and we think that people's choice of words about any given subject at any given time is influenced to some extent by events that they can sort of feel in the future.
Yes.
So we've all experienced the feeling in the hairs on the back of the neck going up, that kind of thing.
Right.
This is sort of a psychic version of that, and it leaks out in their language. And I just happen to be doing computer stuff for various corporations and dealing with large databases, and I'd come up from the telephone companies where you process millions and millions of records all the time. So I thought, what if we just went out and gathered all this language and not caring about who is saying what, but really what is being said in the choice of words over time. And it's been pretty good. I mean, as a prediction tool, I have to admit we're better than chance by some degree.
Yes.
And probably a measurable degree.
Yes, indeed.
Some of our stuff, I would say, as you point out, is foggy. So we've had some disconcertingly accurate hits here, and then we've had some that we were going to be pretty sure of, and we totally misinterpreted the data.
Yeah.
So the humans get in there and muck it up.
Exactly. I was thinking about that last time we talked. That some of the things come out, it's raw, it's scary accurate, and then some stuff, it feels, that just was completely off target, completely. And I started thinking about the sense of, well, maybe that is a clue or a precursor to the fact that the future isn't written in stone, in a sense, that something can happen and can change it, and that's the only, maybe it was accurate, but something happened that changed it.
There is that theory, and there's a corollary of that some scientists actually put a lot of credence into, is that every time you go and look at the future, you necessarily change it.
Yes.
Very much akin to Heisenberg's principle of uncertainty,
right.
Where you can't be looking at the speedometer and where you're going at the same time.
Yes.
Right. So in this case, you look at the speedometer and you change your future by running into something.
Right. Exactly.
So this indeed may be the case, that it is mutable, and we just don't know. But it could be just something as basic as we're just not really getting the underlying clue. We're just off of it in terms of how we've got our emotional parameters set.
Right. Now, one of the things that we talked about, we mentioned last time, because we were coming up on the elections, and I had mentioned to you if there was anything in there, and religion and politics, a lot of emotions get involved in there, mixed in there, and you don't really care one way or the other, because whenever it comes to politics, it's all the same anyway. So to hell with the data, regardless. But the emotions, and when people's emotions start getting involved in things, does that skew or does that throw the forecasting off a little bit because there's an emotion value behind it?
We can actually notice that in the trend lines, and in a particular way, what we've done is basically stuck a peg in the wall and say that when the emotional intensity sums of particular levels of context, which are groups of words, reach this level, and there's not and there's this level of differential between them, we stop interpreting because it's basically too emotionally hot for us to know what's leaking out consciously or subconsciously.
Right.
And so at that point, we just have a tendency to drop that particular area of endeavor. So, for instance, it's, elections, as you point out, religion. It's very difficult to get anything out of there that is not so emotionally hot that it obscures any meaningful data underneath.
Yes, indeed. Right now, with how everything is, I mean, everything from our financial system to I don't know, worrying about the environment, you name it. There's a lot more emotion going into these things than I think that there were in the past. Before it was, in a sense, objective calmness when analyzing or talking about it or discussing it or debating it. Now it's very heated because of everything that's going on. Has that emotion that has been put behind all these different other subjects that before you could get relatively smoothly, is that putting some bumps in the road?
No, not particularly, because the type of thing you're actually discussing, this wide impact on society as a whole, rather than some specific sub-demographic group, is actually forecasting, et cetera, and so on. So we knew that those pressures would be ratcheting up, and so we have that as an emotional base from which to analyze other data. And we really work on the differentials. So as long as we can see the difference between two things, there you go.
Right, I see. Okay, fair enough. And the last time you were on, we talked a lot about, of course, it was the 2009 predictions. And considering the fact that we're halfway through it, some of the things that we covered was something like the 2009, there's going to be some coastal global events, places to avoid, like Florida, Bangladesh. Because I want to take us back to that point whenever this data was coming out, what were you seeing that gave reference to these particular topics?
Well, it's actually global coastal phenomena, okay? A lot of things all clumped together that we'd initially about, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, had identified it initially as a global coastal event.
Yes.
Because 4 or 5 years out, it was just a little blip in a data a long way away, and we didn't have any differentiation.
Right.
The closer we got to it, the more that we realized there was a spread of the language showing up. Now bear in mind, we work at a kind of one step removed. So, in other words, when you go to the hospital and they want to do your vital signs, they're taking your temperature and your pulse to examine how your heart's doing, basically, without actually getting in and looking at your heart. So they're doing it by inference. They're inferring that if your pulse is good, your heart's okay.
Right.
Well, we get sort of a view that way in the sense that we don't get a picture of the events, so to speak, or a description of the events. We get a description of the language that will follow events. And so if that language is wrong, we are also wrong. However, the language can appear without an event appearing, and we're actually having that occur, and it occurred on schedule, and it was related to the global coastal event. It started off the emotional stream, and it was, if you think back about 3 months ago, you started seeing a lot more articles about the ice melt, how much more rapid it was. Greenland and the Antarctica now is popping up. Bear in mind, we said that sometime after May 14th, there'd be a lot more references to Antarctica and the ice melt.
Right.
And basically, we also pointed out, I think the last time we talked, that this was a 5-month process.
Yes.
And that the language would ratchet up over 5 months, and we didn't know if it was going to actually be a crescendo event, like a big flood somewhere, or a discussion about the potential globally for a big flood that got everybody all excited and showed up a lot of words in print. Now, that having been said, we're getting both streams going on here, because at this time, we have the whole language stream out there about all these global coastal fear points, that they're talking about, that the sea level rise could be faster than scientists had anticipated, so they're going to die off, and that's a huge impact on all parts of the ecosystem.
Right.
And there's many repetitious stories, perhaps 150, 200 data points we've collected, that is to say language articles out there that we've analyzed to see where our language is actually appearing and how it's matching our predictions that are showing up relative to that. For instance, there's places on the planet that have tidal action that's extreme one way or another. Finland is known for no tide. It's virtually no tide at all. And yet they're seeing what can only be described as tidal action.
Yes.
And we've got situations in Alaska where they have extreme tides, as we do on Puget Sound. And those extreme tides are getting much more extreme.
Yes, they are.
And you'll also remember that, I think last time we talked, I'd have to go back and look, or listen again, but I think we discussed the new lands appearing in the Pacific.
Yes, we did.
And sure enough, off of Tonga, we got ourselves a nice giant volcano that spewed out a continent that just has yet to pop up above the surface level.
Right.
But that promises to do so over the next few months.
Yes, yes, we do, and also, they've had jellyfish have been seen just congregating along the coast where they never were before, just massive amounts of them, which is just it's got.
Well, and even worse than that is the Portuguese man of war off of Spain that's set to move en masse into the Mediterranean.
Yes.
They're not set up to deal with that creature.
Yes, that's true. That's absolutely true. So all of these things, and like what you mentioned a moment ago, is that it's the language that's picked up after the event happens that increases what you're looking at. It's really, really interesting to see how you take the data within that 5-month period, and it builds to the point, and then it hits. It's really, really interesting how you gather it.
It's a little spooky, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And we don't pretend to understand a lot, but we do pretend to kind of be able to manipulate it a bit to get some understanding of what it's trying to say.
Yeah.
So there's parts of this where it's just a guess as to how it's really working.
Right, indeed. What about the Princeton eggs, for example? Last time I had Jim Birkeland and Cal Orion, we were talking about, it's just Jim, as a matter of fact. We were talking about different earthquakes and the extreme tidal the differences in the tides and the size of the
Sure. The neat versus other tide sets.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was pointed out was the Princeton eggs, whenever that big earthquake hit in Italy, the Princeton eggs were red constantly throughout that. What do you think of the Princeton eggs?
I think it's a really cool device. I wish we had more sensor points. It makes a lot of sense in terms of the way in which it's constructed. My view is that humans by nature are, I hate to get into this because it sounds really metaphysical, but at its core it's rather physics, right?
Yes.
And we're taught in school that all humans are basically a collection of cells. And all these cells are basically a collection of subparticles called atoms, or molecules. And each atom, or each molecule is composed of different atoms, of different kinds of elements, carbon, etc. And so, but basically it comes down to atoms. You're just a huge collection of atoms walking around. Most of them are water.
Yes.
Now, the thing about atoms is you were taught in school that an atom is a composite of a neutron core, protons, and electrons, and that the electrons are going whizzing around the outside like little tiny moons going really fast around the planet. Now, the fact of the matter is that is true up to a point, and then from that point on, it's all analogy. And so everybody gets the idea that the atom is actually composed of like these little tiny micro-miniature particles or little tiny rocks or something. And that's not the case.
Right.
Atoms are, in fact, a collision of energy at so many different levels at such a high-intensity speed that our minds perceive them as solid.
Right. And
that's really the way to look at it. And if you have that view of the world, the eggs make perfect sense. And, in fact, they should work. Because if we are truly energetic beings, basically walking around as like energized antenna, both for the physical reality around us, and in my way of thinking, for the prescient, at least near future, then we should be able to pick up on those kind of waves that are coming out of larger entities, such as the planet.
Yes.
It kind of makes sense.
Indeed. We got into it, I had a guest on, we got into a subject of the universe being alive. That observations of the universe, you can come to no other conclusion that it really is alive. We don't understand how it is alive, but it reacts and acts like a living entity.
Well, you can also think of it another way, and that is to assume the Vedic kind of scriptures and the Mayan understanding of the world or universe is true. And that is that as currently here we are on Earth, your body does not house your mind.
Yes.
And it may seem a little shocking, but it's the other way around. Your body is a construct within the energy that is your consciousness and